Hey Divination, thank you for joining us in this live stream. Today we'll show you how to create a slide-in menu with Divi's theme builder, and we'll also use the yoga instructor layout pack. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure that you do. I've mentioned a link in the description below. And if you're non-elegant themes member yet, make sure that you check out Divi. I've mentioned a link to the product page where you can go ahead and discover everything for yourself. So without any further ado, let's get to it. All right. I just want to say hi to everyone on YouTube and on Facebook. If you guys have any questions, make sure that you leave a comment on the live chat on YouTube or in the comment section on Facebook. All right, so let's get started. Before I get into the tutorial, I'll just show you the yoga instructor layout pack, which I'll use for this tutorial. So if you go to elegantthemes.com/layouts, you can find all of the layout packs that come with Divi for free. And if you scroll down, you'll come across one of the recent ones being the yoga instructor layout pack. So this is the overall look and feel that we'll use within this tutorial to create our slide-in menu. So this menu in particular will match this layout pack really well, but you can fine-tune it to use it on other websites too. So what is the outcome of our tutorial? Let's take a quick look. All right, so over here I have the landing page installed, and in the top right corner you can see a hamburger icon, and I have a logo in the top left corner as well. Now if I click on this, I will see a slide-in menu appear, and this is custom built with Divi's theme builder. So we're combining the best of both worlds. We're using a bit of custom code and all of Divi's built-in elements to create this. And if I click it again, it goes away. And this is completely responsive. It looks great across all screen sizes. So over here I have the example on a mobile phone. If I click it, it appears and it goes away again, just like that. All right, so let's get started. And I'm just gonna check out the comments really quick. I see a lot of people already joining in on YouTube. Hi Lila, Great Yam, Alberto, Uncle Social, Aditya. It's nice to see you guys here. I hope you will enjoy it. And of course, as always, make sure to leave a comment if you have any questions. I see someone on Facebook as well, Xi. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. All right, cool. Let's get to this. So the first thing you will need to do is go to your Divi theme builder. And over here, we're going to build a new header. Over here you can notice the global header. This is the one that we've built over here, and I'm just going to recreate it within a new template. So I have a landing page set up with the default navigation that is used within Divi right off the bat, and I'm going to replace it with a custom built header by clicking on add custom header, and I'll click on build custom header. Over here, you get three options. You can start building from scratch, choose a pre-made layout, or clone an existing page. We'll build everything from scratch by clicking on the blue item over here. And as you can notice, we already have a section within our page. Now, the first step to creating this beautiful slide-in header is modifying the section settings. So I'm going to open these settings, and an important part of making sure that there's no bar really over here is me using a completely transparent background color. So to do that, just remove all transparency, all color over here by setting the transparency to 0, and that will just help us make sure that everything below the section shows up. Next, I'm going to go to the spacing settings over here, and I'm going to use some not negative but 0 pixels for the top and bottom padding options, and this will remove the default container space for the padding that's created in a section. So instead of using top and bottom padding, we'll add 0 pixels to both options. And then we'll go to the advanced tab, and in the position settings, we'll make sure that the entire section stays fixed to the top of the page by using a fixed position. So I'll just select fixed over here. And I'm also going to select top center. This will just make sure that the section is centered, although the width of our section is already 100%. It just helps if you're modifying the width or anything like that. So next up, we're going to add our first row. And we'll need 2 rows in total. The first row will contain our logo and our hamburger icon. So to create that, we'll need a column structure with 3 columns, and this, the one that I'm hovering right now. So this one over here is the one that we're picking. Let me just show it once again over here. So this is the one that we've selected. And before adding any modules, I'm going to open the row settings, go to the design tab, go to the sizing settings, and I'm going to increase the width to 97%. Let me just do that really quick over here. And I'll also use a 100% max width. And this will just help us, create a bigger size for our container. So it's touching the size of the section container almost and creating that, full width experience. Next, I'm going to go to the spacing settings over here in the row settings, and I'm just going to add a bit of top padding, 1% to be exact, and I'll remove the default bottom padding that's included within the row by adding 0 pixels. Well, up next, I'm going to go to the Advanced tab. And over here, within the main element of our row, I'm going to add 2 lines of CSS code. Now, what these 2 lines of CSS code will do is it will help us align the column content between each other. So that just means that everything's centered, and it just takes 2 lines of CSS code. It isn't really necessary because you can play around with spacing settings too, but I just think it's a nice tip and trick to use within your rows if you want to automatically make that centering happen. So the first line is display flex, and then the second one is align items center. All right. And now we can start adding the modules. So in this first row, we're going to need 2 modules. In the first column of the row, we'll need an image module, and this is going to represent our logo. So you can upload any logo of your choice. Let me just grab one really quick over here in my media library. And then I'll go to the third column, and over here I'm going to add a text module. Now this text module will represent our hamburger icon, which is actually not an image, it's actually made out of spans. So let me just grab those spans. And you can grab these in the blog post, which you can view by going to the description and going to the blog post, and there you can find these spans as well, but you can read them off the screen as well. So I'll just switch over to the text tab over here, and I'll add the spans. So you can notice 3 over here, and they all have the class line. And then line 1 for the first one, line 2 for the second one, and line 3 for the third one. Now the reason why we're using spans is to create this kind of animation on click. So if I click it, it turns into an X and it goes back just like that. And just using spans allows us to style them with CSS and then transform them on click, which is really easy. All right. So next I'm going to add a background color to this text module. So you can notice that over here as well, we're using a background color. Let me grab the color code really quick. And then I'll go to the text settings, and over here it is important for you to set the line height to 0. This will just help us give us that flexible approach to styling the different spans, because if you use text line height, there will be some difference between the different spans that you are not able to control within the code that you add afterwards. So I recommend putting that to 0. Then we'll go to the sizing settings, and we're going to slightly shrink the size of our module to 120 pixels. And we'll also use right module alignment. Now in the spacing settings, we're going to give this a kind of square look and feel by adding some custom padding values. So we're using 40 pixels for the top option, 60 pixels for the bottom option, and 40 pixels for the left and the right side. All right, so this is our first row. I'll just check the comment section really quick to see if you guys are following along. So Uncle Social says, I wish the value of the default padding wasn't hidden. I want to know what it is before you set it to 0. Hopefully they change that part of the interface in a future update. The reason to why there's default padding is because it's linked to the theme customizer. So if you want to remove that default padding throughout your entire website, you can do that within the theme customizer. I think it's in the layout settings, so you can automatically set the height of your section, I think it is, to 0, and it will remove that, and you can add it manually afterwards. So it's kind of a site-wide preference that most people go with. So as soon as they add an element, it has kind of some decent space going on at the top and the bottom, and it doesn't look like it's pressing against each other. But I totally get it. It's a valid point that you're making. All right, let's continue. So on to our next row. So right now, obviously you cannot see the hamburger icon, but later on it will be added. And before we get to that, we're going to need a new row. Now this row will be entirely dedicated to our side menu. And we're going to use one column only. So this entire row is going to be our side menu. Now I'm going to open these settings of my row and go to the background settings, and I'm going to change the background color. Let me just grab that color code really quick. Here we go. So this matches the yoga instructor layout back really well. And we're also using a pattern background. So you can find this in the download folder in the blog post. So you can download this layout. So this template for free, along with the background pattern. So this background pattern is part of the yoga instructor layout pack, and I've just reused it within this tutorial. Now over here, you will need to modify these settings. So you'll use actual size for the background image size, center for the background image position. We're going to repeat the background image, and this will just create a pattern with a small image, and it looks really good. All right, so next we'll move on to the sizing settings. And over here, I'm going to enable use custom gutter width and put this to 1. This will just remove all space between modules, which is usually in pixels. We want to control it ourselves using VW, so it matches different screen sizes, so that's why we're removing the gutter width. And over here in the width, this is also a very important part. We're going to make sure that the side menu is responsive. Now on desktop, that means 20% is enough. But on smaller screen sizes, we'll need to increase the percentage. We'll use 40% on tablet and 60% on phone. And we're also going to set the height to 100 VH. This will just mean that the side menu will take up the entire height of your screen size, whether it is on desktop or tablet or whatever. It will always be the height of your screen size, giving it this nice slide-in full height effect. And then we'll go to the spacing settings over here, and we'll use some top padding. Now this top padding that we'll add will create some space between the top of the slide-in menu and the content that we'll add later on. So this is also modified to different screen sizes. Let me just enable the mobile option over here. On desktop, we're using 10 VW. On tablet, we're using 30 VW and 40 VW on phone. And we'll also add a border, so a left border. You can definitely see that in the preview here as well. Let me just show it again. We have this left border really subtle, but it helps differentiate the slide-in menu from the page content. You can use a box shadow as well. It's also often used to create a difference between both. And I'll just use 10 pixels And let me grab the color code for that really quick. So this is the color code that we're using, matches the layout pack style, and we'll use a double border style over here. Now that we have the container in place, we can add the elements that we want to show up in our slide in menu. Now to add the elements, you don't need any widget or sidebars or anything like that. You can just use text modules. If you're using this as a global header, it will just mean that it shows up everywhere and the links will be correct anyway. So you have this kind of design freedom, I would say, to do whatever you want, style it however you want, and just add the link of your choice instead of adding it to the theme customizer. For instance, like just create a separate menu. You can just do that over here, have one there as well, but just customize all of the modules here to match your design needs. All right, so I'll just add some content of my choice, and over here it is important to link it to the correct page, of course, so definitely make sure that you do that. And I'm going to modify the background colors. So we're using a semi-transparent background color, which is the following one. So you can read it off the screen, but again, you can find all of the steps in the blog post, which is listed below in the description of this video. And then I'll go to the design tab and I'll modify the text settings. So as you'll notice throughout this tutorial, we're using VW a lot, and that is just to make sure that it matches all screen sizes. VW is excellent. VW, for those who don't know, VW means viewport width. So it takes 1% of your viewport width and fine tunes it that way. So no matter what kind of screen size you're dealing with, it will be adjusted. And then we'll go to the spacing settings. So, okay, over here, the text font is Domin, text font weight is bold, a black text color, 1 VW on desktop, 2 VW on tablet, 3 VW on phone, because I forgot to mention that. And then I'll go to the spacing settings over here, and we're going to give our module some space to breathe using custom margin and padding values. Here we go. So on desktop, we're using 1 VW for the bottom margin, 2 VW for tablet, and 3 VW for phone, and we're using 1 VW for the top and bottom padding across all screen sizes. Now, once you have your first text module in place, so your menu item, you can clone this up to as many times as you want. Just make sure that it fits the viewport height of whatever browser you're using. So over here, let's just take 5, for instance. And then, of course, you'll go ahead and modify all of the content, so you can place about here and blog and contact and more. And also make sure that you change the links accordingly. Now the last thing we'll add over here is a button module, but you're really free to add whatever you want. If you want to place social media icons in there, you can use Divi social media follow module. You can tweak this design however you want, because the important part will follow next, where we just make sure that this entire row appears as a slide in once someone clicks the hamburger icon. So over here, I'm going to modify the button alignment to center as I've done. Make sure that you add a link here as well in your button settings to a CTA of your choice. And then I'm going to modify the button settings. Let me grab those really quick. So these are the settings that we're using. We're using 0.7 VW for the text size on desktop, 1.5 VW on tablet, and 2.5 VW on phone. But again, you can find all of these steps in the blog post, and you can copy all of the color codes there as well. We're using a black text color, a white background color, actually completely transparent as well, so you can fine-tune this however you want, but we're just sticking to the yoga instructor layout pack and making it completely transparent. We're also using 2 pixels for the border width, along with a border color, which is the following one. We're using 0 pixels for the border radius, so we're removing it entirely. 4 pixels for the button letter spacing. Open sans for the bottom font, bold for the bottom font weight, and we're also enabling uppercase. And then we'll go to the spacing settings, and again here we're going to modify the values according to different screen sizes using VW as our unit to make sure that everything remains responsive. So we're using 5 VW for the top margin, and then on desktop 1 VW for top and bottom, 1.8 VW for left and right, and we'll tweak these values across different screen sizes. So 2 VW for top and bottom on tablet, 3 VW for the left and the right side, and 3 VW for the top and the bottom on phone, and 4 VW for the left and right side on phone. All right, so far we're doing really good. I'm just gonna check on the comment section, and in the next part we'll make the magic happen. Okay, I see people are still joining in. Are you guys ready for the last part to make this tutorial complete and have a beautiful slide-in menu that you can use on all kind of websites and customize however you want? All right, let's get to it. Now the first thing we're going to do over here is open the row settings of our second row. So not the first, the second, and we'll assign a custom CSS class. The one we're using in the code and over here is slide in menu container. So you can read it off the screen or find it in the blog post. And then we'll also reposition the entire row in the position settings. So what we'll do is we'll select absolute for the position and place it in the top right corner. Now over here, it doesn't seem like it's overlapping, but on your website, it definitely will. Now in the horizontal offset option over here, we're going to place the row on the right side so we can create a kind of slide-in effect. So we'll use a negative value for this. Now this will be different across different screen sizes, and it will match the width of your row. Now over here in the sizing settings, if I go back in, it is 20% for desktop, 40% for tablet, and 60% for phone. Now we'll take those exact values, but add a minus in front of it. So minus 20% on desktop, minus 40% on tablet. And you can see it over here. It's still appearing, and as soon as we modify it to the proper value, it goes away. This just helps us ensure that the slide-in menu doesn't overlap any existing content on our page. And we'll also remove the opacity to create this kind of fading in and out effect. You can definitely notice it over here by adding a line of CSS code. It says opacity 0. Now we'll also need to add another CSS property, so a CSS ID to the text module in the first row, so in the third column of our first row. So this is going to basically be the trigger of our code. And as soon as someone clicks it, a click function in jQuery will happen, which will reposition the row that we've created, so the second row that we've created, put it in place, and increase the opacity. Now, the CSS ID we need is slide in open. You can modify these CSS IDs and classes as long as you modify them in the code afterwards as well. All right. Now, the only thing left to do is add our code. Now, I'm going to place a code module in the second column of my row just simply because I don't have anything there and it doesn't show up anyway. You can place it anywhere you want. but this seems like a good place to place it in. And I'll first add my CSS code. And it's important for you to add it between style tags, as you can notice over here. I'm changing the cursor into pointer. So over here, if I hover this, you can see a pointer instead of something else. Like usually it's the selector, or I don't know what other options are out there. And over here, we're also styling the spans. So you can already see it show up. Here we have our hamburger icon. We're styling them, and we're customizing the style of the second and the third span. Same goes for once it's open, we'll reposition it using a top value, and we'll also rotate it. The second one will disappear. Over here, if I click it, you can see that we only have two, and that's because the second one has disappeared once you click on it. And we'll also remove over here, this is important, so as soon as someone clicks, the second container will remove that negative percentage across different screen sizes, so the right value will be 0 again, and the opacity will be brought up back to 1. It's kind of hard to explain code, right? But I hope you guys get it somehow. And we'll also use some jQuery code. So the jQuery code is really minimal. We'll just use one function, which is the click function. I definitely, if you're just starting out or if you're already proficient with Divi, I definitely recommend looking into a few basic jQuery functions so you can make all kinds of things happen. And it's definitely fun to do as well, I must say. So over here, we have one function. So this slide and open equals the hamburger icon. So as soon as someone clicks on it, it will toggle the class called open, which we've interpreted here in our code. It will just change the hamburger icon, and it will also toggle the class slide-in menu for the second row that we've added, which means that it will bring the right back to 0 and the opacity to 1. So far, my code. And I'm going to save this. And exit the Visual Builder. Over here, make sure that once you're done creating anything within the theme builder, that you save the theme builder changes as well. Let me refresh this. So if I click it, my side menu appears and it disappears again. Really cool, isn't it? I'm just going to take one final look at the comment section to see if there are any questions. Someone's asking, hi Danit, can you explain the best use for VW or percentage to get the best result for responsiveness? Yeah, honestly, in the past, it really depends on your use case, and I'm sure that all of you hear that a lot, that it really depends on what you're creating, and that's because it actually does. And for instance, VW makes a lot of sense if you're designing something that's full screen or full width and you want everything to stay exactly the same. Or for instance, in this particular example, we just wanted to make sure that the elements shrink according to the screen size so we don't exceed a certain height. Now, percentage, I think, comes in really handy when you're limited to a certain container. So say, for instance, a column container, if you're using spacing for a column, you'll usually use percentage. The reason for that is that it will also automatically modify itself across different screen sizes, but based on the container itself, if that makes sense. Hope it made sense. Yeah. So yeah, it's usually based on the container you're using. I personally go for VW when I'm trying to create something full screen or full height, and I use percentage if I'm still using pixels. By the way, like for text and stuff like that, if I'm still using pixels, but I just want to make sure that the padding is kind of similar across different screen sizes, then I'll use percentage instead. All right, someone's asking, but in mobile menu, the text alignment is not working for mobile and tablet. Please guide me on how to solve it. What exactly do you need? Let me just check if it's center aligned here. So I don't have any problems over here. Yeah, maybe a specific use case where I could understand a bit better. And Uncle Social is mentioning one of Jason's posts, a guide to understanding and applying CSS length units in Divi. Definitely recommend. Let me just search it and paste it over there, so you guys can check it out. Jason does a great job at explaining how the different units work. What I just explained, like my use cases and how I use it, is purely based on personal experience. Because, you know, it definitely depends on what kind of situation you're in. Okay, I got it. Let me just copy and paste it over here on Facebook and on YouTube. Here's Jason's post. Well, seems like there aren't any more questions. So that was it for this tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and we hope that you're enjoying this ongoing Divi design initiative where we try to put something extra into your design toolbox each and every week. Make sure to check back with us next week for another use case live stream, and see you in the next one. Bye.